When Germany invaded Denmark in April 1940, the small Scandinavian nation entered World War II under unique and highly unusual circumstances. Unlike other occupied nations, Denmark was initially deemed a model protectorate by Adolf Hitler, allowing its government and king to retain a degree of nominal independence. This unique status meant that for over 3 years, the small Jewish population of approximately 7,800 people lived in a state of fragile, temporary safety. The Danish government successfully resisted German demands to implement anti-Jewish laws, and the population, fiercely protective of its Jewish citizens, believed they might be spared the horrors unfolding elsewhere in Europe. This fragile protection shattered in August 1943, following a rise in resistance activities and strikes by Danish workers. Furious, Adolf Hitler declared martial law and immediately ordered the swift, systematic deportation of all Danish Jews to concentration camps. The order was scheduled to take full effect on October 1, 1943, ominously coinciding with the Jewish New Year, Rosh Hashanah, when Jewish families would traditionally be gathered at home. The command to carry out the mass arrests was given to Reich Plenipotentiary Werner Best, the highest-ranking German official in Denmark, who immediately began mobilizing the necessary German Wehrmacht and Gestapo forces for the impending roundup. In a profound and pivotal act of moral courage, the deportation plan was immediately leaked. George Ferdinand Duckwitz, a German diplomat and shipping attaché, was deeply and morally opposed to the genocide and risked his life to warn the Danish authorities of the impending arrests. Duckwitz contacted leading Danish politicians and activists, relaying the full details of the Gestapo's planned raid, including the exact date. The urgent warning was passed quickly to the chief rabbi, who immediately used the celebration of Rosh Hashanah not as a gathering for prayer, but as a critical opportunity to tell his congregation to scatter and hide, initiating a massive, nationwide scramble for survival. The revelation of the Nazi plan provoked an unprecedented, unified response from the Danish people. The entire nation rejected the barbarity of the German order. King Christian X and the National Church immediately voiced their strong public protests. More critically, the Danish Resistance and thousands of ordinary citizens, doctors, fishermen, students, and police, spontaneously united to create a massive, decentralized, and immediate underground rescue effort. The urgent strategy was simple but immense in scale: transport every single Jewish man, woman, and child across the narrow, 4-mile strait of the Øresund to the safety of neutral Sweden before the Gestapo could execute the arrests. The warning from George Ferdinand Duckwitz ignited an immediate, spontaneous mobilization of the entire Danish nation. Within hours of the chief rabbi's urgent message, a vast, decentralized network of ordinary citizens sprang into action. Doctors, nurses, teachers, students, taxi drivers, and even police officers risked their lives, often without direct orders, to warn their Jewish neighbors, friends, and even strangers. This rapid spread of information was crucial, as it allowed thousands of Jewish families just days, and in some cases, mere hours, to abandon their homes and workplaces, gather their few belongings, and seek immediate refuge. The Danish Resistance, though a small and nascent organization, rapidly scaled up its operations to coordinate the massive rescue effort. They established clandestine safe houses in churches, hospitals, and private homes across Copenhagen and the coastal towns. Local doctors pretended that Jewish refugees were patients in need of immediate hospitalization, admitting them under false names to hide them from searching Gestapo patrols. Ordinary families welcomed strangers into their homes, offering food, shelter, and a desperate sense of solidarity. The sheer breadth of public participation made it almost impossible for the German Wehrmacht or the Gestapo to track the movements of thousands of people. The most critical and dangerous phase of the rescue was the actual transportation of the Jewish refugees to the coast. Private vehicles, ambulances, and even garbage trucks were used to secretly move families from their hiding places to various fishing villages along the Øresund Strait. Each journey was fraught with extreme peril, as German patrols and checkpoints were ubiquitous. Drivers devised ingenious methods of concealment, such as instructing passengers to lie absolutely still under blankets, or pretending to transport sick patients or even corpses, knowing that a single stop or suspicious glance could condemn everyone on board. The scale of the grassroots operation was truly unprecedented. The Danish people spontaneously raised hundreds of thousands of Danish kroner, Danish currency, collecting donations from ordinary citizens to pay for the escape routes, which primarily involved bribing Danish fishermen to transport the refugees across the strait. This financial support was critical, as the fishermen faced immense risks, not only from German coastal patrols, but also from the economic consequences of potentially losing their boats. The entire nation effectively became a massive, organized underground railway, united by a shared moral imperative to protect their Jewish citizens. On the night of October 1, 1943, the Gestapo launched their coordinated mass raid across Copenhagen and the surrounding towns, ready to execute Adolf Hitler's order to deport the entire Danish Jewish community. The German forces found a scene of confusion and humiliating failure. The synagogues were empty, and the homes of Jewish families, which should have been filled with people celebrating Rosh Hashanah, were deserted. The German High Command's secrecy had been entirely defeated by the unified moral response of the Danish nation. The mass arrests were an immediate, catastrophic failure for Reich Plenipotentiary Werner Best, who had completely underestimated the level of fierce solidarity between the Danish people and their Jewish neighbors. The focus of the entire rescue effort now shifted fully to the final, terrifying leg of the journey, the sea crossing of the Øresund Strait. The passage, only 4 miles wide at its narrowest point, was a gauntlet of immense danger, heavily monitored by German naval patrol craft and coastal surveillance. The crucial partners in this phase were the local fishermen. These men risked their livelihoods and their lives, charging high prices for the transit, often using the money to bribe German military officials who were willing to look the other way, or to simply cover the immense costs and risks associated with potentially losing their boats. The methods of concealment used by the Danish Resistance and the fishermen were both ingenious and often desperate. Jewish refugees, including the elderly, the sick, and young children, were crammed into the small, dark holds of fishing vessels, hidden beneath layers of fishing nets, canvas, or even carefully arranged stacks of fish and supplies. In some instances, doctors administered light sedatives to children and the elderly to ensure absolute silence during the long, tense hours of the crossing. Each trip was a profound gamble, as a single searchlight beam or a routine German boarding for inspection would mean instant discovery, capture, and the subsequent deportation of everyone aboard. The ultimate success of the mission was guaranteed by the political cooperation of the neighboring country. The Swedish government, informed of the desperate situation by the Danish Resistance, took a powerful moral stance. They publicly declared that they would accept and grant immediate asylum to all Danish Jewish refugees who managed to cross the Øresund Strait. This public promise of sanctuary provided the final, critical assurance needed by the Danish Resistance and the fishermen, empowering them to continue the dangerous operation tirelessly until nearly the entire Jewish community had been safely transported out of occupied Denmark and into the lasting freedom of neutral Sweden. The success of the Danish rescue operation was a complex tapestry woven from selfless heroism and, surprisingly, an element of quiet German complicity. While Adolf Hitler and Reich Plenipotentiary Werner Best had issued explicit orders for the total deportation of all Danish Jews, many lower-ranking German Wehrmacht and Kriegsmarine, German Navy, officers, operating in Denmark, quietly and deliberately chose to look the other way. This tacit non-interference often involved accepting bribes from Danish fishermen and resistance groups, creating a crucial window of opportunity for the small boats to cross the Øresund Strait undetected. These German officers, often out of a sense of disgust with the Nazi regime's brutality, subtly aided the escape, demonstrating a rare moral defiance within the ranks of the occupying forces. The crucial role of George Ferdinand Duckwitz, the German diplomat who initially leaked the deportation order, cannot be overstated. He did not merely issue a warning. He actively worked to stall the Gestapo's efforts and covertly contacted the Swedish government, securing their public declaration of asylum for the Danish Jews. Duckwitz's actions, taken at immense personal risk, provided both the initial impetus and the critical logistical framework for the entire rescue mission. His quiet defiance within the heart of the German occupation machinery stands as a powerful testament to the individual courage that can challenge even the most totalitarian regimes. The complete dedication of the Danish resistance movement was the backbone of the entire operation. This diverse network, ranging from students to established professionals, orchestrated the intricate logistics of the rescue. They managed the safe houses, arranged transportation, collected funds, and coordinated with the fishermen. Their organizational brilliance, combined with their deep knowledge of the local terrain and their ability to move secretly under the noses of the German Wehrmacht and Gestapo patrols, ensured that thousands of lives were saved. The Danish resistance transformed itself overnight from a nascent sabotage group into a sophisticated humanitarian organization. The overwhelming success of the operation was also a direct consequence of the unique social and political landscape of Denmark. Unlike many other occupied nations, there was no significant history of anti-Semitism within Denmark, and the Jewish community was deeply integrated into Danish society. This strong societal cohesion meant that the German deportation order was perceived not merely as an attack on Jews, but as an attack on the very fabric of Danish national identity and moral values. This unified national rejection of Nazi barbarity fueled the widespread civilian participation, making the rescue a truly collective act of national heroism and moral defiance. The rescue operation, while a resounding success, was not without its profound human costs and near misses. Despite the overwhelming civilian participation and the quiet complicity of some German officials, the inherent dangers of the sea crossing were immense. German coastal patrols, occasional raids, and unpredictable weather conditions meant that every single crossing of the Øresund Strait was a desperate gamble. A small number of boats were intercepted, and a tragic few capsized in rough seas, leading to the loss of life among both refugees and their brave Danish rescuers. These painful losses underscored the immense risks taken by everyone involved in the operation. The sheer scale of the operation in such a short period of time was astonishing. Over a mere 3 weeks in October 1943, approximately 7,200 Danish Jews, roughly 95% of Denmark's entire Jewish population, were successfully transported across the Øresund to the safety of neutral Sweden. This included nearly all the elderly, the sick, and even those in hiding. In stark contrast to other occupied European nations where Jewish populations faced near total annihilation, the Danish rescue stands as an unparalleled achievement in the annals of World War II resistance and humanitarian action, a beacon of hope against the darkest chapter of human history. Tragically, around 450 Danish Jews were ultimately captured by the Gestapo during the initial roundups or in subsequent searches. These individuals were deported to the Versailles ghetto camp in Czechoslovakia. However, even for those captured, the Danish government and ordinary citizens did not abandon them. They relentlessly lobbied the German authorities, sending food parcels and demanding information. This sustained pressure and remarkable national solidarity ensured that, unlike most other camps, an exceptionally high proportion of the Danish Jews at Versailles survived the war, a testament to the unwavering commitment of their nation. The extraordinary success of the rescue was a massive moral and propaganda blow to the Third Reich. Adolf Hitler's regime, which had sought to demonstrate its absolute power and enforce its genocidal ideology, was completely thwarted by a small, occupied nation that refused to comply. The Danish people's unanimous rejection of the Nazi racial policies and their collective action became an enduring symbol of resistance and human decency. The rescue was not just a humanitarian triumph. It was a profound act of national defiance that resonated throughout occupied Europe, offering a powerful counter-narrative to the prevailing despair and terror. The immense scale of the sea crossing demanded significant financial resources. The fishermen, despite their patriotic commitment, risked losing their boats to German confiscation or sea hazards, and they required funds to acquire fuel and bribe potential collaborators. As a result, the fees charged were substantial, sometimes exceeding 1,000 Danish kroner per person, an astronomical sum for the time. However, this money often acted as a vital operating cost, not merely a profit. The financial backbone of the operation was created by a spontaneous, nationwide fundraising effort, with the Danish Resistance collecting massive donations from ordinary citizens, businesses, and even sympathetic institutions, ensuring that even the poorest refugees could afford the price of freedom. The success of the physical transport was secured by the political commitment of the neighboring country. Sweden's publicly declared policy of granting immediate asylum to all Danish Jewish refugees was critical. This promise was unique in occupied Europe, providing a concrete, non-negotiable guarantee of safety that strongly encouraged the Danish resistance and the fishermen to continue their perilous work. The knowledge that the refugees would be welcomed and protected upon arrival was the political shield that protected the entire operation, confirming that the journey across the Øresund Strait led not just to a border, but to genuine, lasting sanctuary under the protection of a neutral government. Upon arrival on the Swedish side of the Øresund, the network did not falter. The refugees were systematically received by Swedish authorities and aid workers who immediately housed, clothed, and fed the exhausted and traumatized arrivals. The reception process was highly organized to ensure smooth integration into Swedish society, effectively preventing any German attempt to track or demand the refugees' return. The Swedish government, maintaining strict neutrality, publicly asserted that the refugees were under their full protection, adding a final, impenetrable layer of political security to the escapees' lives, ensuring they remained safe for the rest of World War II. The entire Danish cultural fabric participated in the organizational brilliance of the rescue. Institutions like the Danish folk high schools and various hospitals became integral parts of the escape line. These institutions offered highly secure, temporary hiding places where refugees could be housed and sometimes disguised as students, patients, or staff members, hiding them from the immediate threat of the Gestapo sweeps. This profound institutional involvement, coupled with the individual heroism of thousands of fishermen and ordinary citizens, demonstrated that the preservation of human life was a collective national priority that transcended military risk and political fear. By the end of the spontaneous, highly organized rescue effort, the statistics of the Danish operation were truly astounding. Over 7,200 people, more than 95% of the entire Danish Jewish community, were successfully transported across the dangerous Øresund Strait and into the lasting safety of neutral Sweden. This monumental achievement remains an unparalleled act of mass rescue during the darkest years of the Holocaust. The small nation demonstrated that collective moral courage, supported by civilian ingenuity and political unity, could successfully defeat the systematic terror of the Third Reich's genocidal machinery, establishing a unique chapter in World War II history. Despite this overwhelming success, tragedy was unavoidable. Approximately 450 Danish Jews were ultimately captured by the Gestapo during the initial raids, and in subsequent searches. These individuals were deported by train to the Versailles ghetto camp in Czechoslovakia. However, even in the grim confines of the camp, the deportees maintained a unique and life-saving status. The Danish nation did not abandon them. The Danish government immediately launched an intense, continuous diplomatic effort to protect them from the mass extermination processes that afflicted other Jewish prisoners. This sustained political pressure and remarkable show of national solidarity were continuous throughout the war. The Danish government and Danish Red Cross relentlessly lobbied the German authorities, sending food parcels and demanding regular monitoring of the conditions at their Versailles. This continuous, external vigilance and international pressure was instrumental. The Germans, desperate to maintain the facade of the model protectorate and avoid further international condemnation, generally refrained from executing the Danish Jews. Consequently, the survival rate among the captured group was exceptionally high, with nearly all of them surviving until the end of the war. The final, crucial element of the operation was the tactical silence and inaction of the German High Command. Werner Best and the Gestapo were profoundly humiliated by the national defiance, but they ultimately chose not to heavily punish the Danish nation for their mass resistance. There were no widespread executions of the fishermen, no mass arrests of the Danish resistance leaders who were clearly known, and no complete crackdown on the Danish population. The German command decided that preserving the illusion of a stable protectorate was politically more valuable than exacting revenge. This calculated non-interference in the weeks following the failed raid allowed the brave Danish resistance and the civilian population to safely evacuate the final remaining groups throughout October, securing their place as a nation that stood united against evil. When World War II finally ended in May 1945, the profound success of the Danish rescue operation was completed with the safe return of the refugees. Over 7,200 Danish Jews, who had spent more than 18 months in the lasting safety of neutral Sweden, began their journey home. Their return was a moment of immense national celebration, a rare symbol of unbroken unity in a continent devastated by war. The Danish people had saved their Jewish community, and the Jewish community, in turn, returned to a nation that had heroically fought for their survival against the worst horrors of the Third Reich. The reunion was a powerful, emotional testament to the success of the collective moral endeavor. The final statistics of the rescue stand in stark, powerful contrast to the rest of Europe. While the Holocaust tragically claimed the vast majority of Jewish communities elsewhere, over 99% of the Jews living in Denmark survived World War II. This unparalleled survival rate was a direct result of the nationwide, collective resistance effort. The high survival rate among the small number of deportees in their Versailles, who were protected by the continuous diplomatic pressure of the Danish government, only further underscores the exceptional success and the unique moral stance of the entire nation in the face of mass murder. The rescue operation was globally recognized for its profound moral courage. The Danish resistance movement was internationally hailed for its audacity and organization. In the decades following the war, the Yad Vashem Holocaust Memorial recognized the heroism of the Danish resistance by designating several Danish individuals as righteous among the nations. However, the memorial found itself facing a unique problem. The cooperation of the general populace was so widespread, pervasive, and spontaneous that honoring individuals seemed insufficient. The rescue was widely considered the act of an entire nation, acting as one unit to reject the Nazi agenda. The enduring legacy of the rescue of the Danish Jews is preserved as one of the most inspiring and unique historical events of World War II. The story remains a profound example of civilian resistance and the undeniable power of moral unity in the face of absolute evil. It successfully proves that the collective conscience of a nation, supported by political will and the dedication of ordinary citizens, can indeed defy the genocidal commands of a totalitarian regime, securing their unique place as the nation that saved its Jews.